I want you to imagine someone. They wake up super tired, but they quickly put on some clothes, get in the car, go to the drive-thru, grab a sandwich and a coffee, and then they head out to school or work. They get through the day running on empty. They come home stressed about money, feeling kind of low, so they eat something that makes them feel better for the next 20 minutes. And then guess what? They do it all again tomorrow. Does that sound familiar? That's not a character I made up. That's most people in today's society. Maybe that's you sometimes. And here's the thing nobody tells you. That cycle, it's not happening by accident. There are trillion-dollar industries that need you stuck in that loop to keep making money. And today, I'm gonna show you exactly who they are, how it works, and how you can actually get out. And we're gonna start with the most obvious one, food. Because that person I just described, the one grabbing something fast in the morning, eating something comforting at night to feel better, that's not a willpower problem. And it's not laziness either. It's a billion-dollar science experiment, and you are the test subject. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Have you ever eaten a bag of chips, finished it, but then immediately after wanted another bag of chips? Or drink a soda and feel like you need another one just an hour later? At that time, you probably thought, man, I have no willpower. But that's not actually what's happening. That's by design. Here's what you need to know. There's this thing called the Bliss point. It was a term invented by a food scientist named Howard Moskowitz back in the 90s. You see, food companies hire scientists to figure out the exact combination of salt, sugar, and fat that makes you want to keep eating. Not the amount that makes you full, the amount that makes you unable to stop. And I want you to really sit with that for a second. They're not trying to feed you. They're trying to make sure you never feel done. There's a whole team of people in a lab somewhere whose entire job is making sure that when you finish one, you immediately want another. That's literally the product, not the food, the craving. And it works. A review of nearly 300 studies across 36 different countries found that ultra-processed foods like chips, fast food, soda, candy may actually meet the scientific criteria for addictive substances. The same kind of criteria used to classify alcohol and cigarettes. Think about that. The food on the shelves at most supermarkets could be classified in the same category as cigarettes. Scientists at Drexel University and the University of Pennsylvania have been studying what they call ultra-processed food addiction. And they found that people showed behaviors like consuming more than they intended, losing control over how much they ate, and craving the food even when they weren't hungry. And here's why that happens. When you eat ultra-processed food, your body breaks it down super fast, way faster than natural food, and it hits your bloodstream almost immediately. That triggers your brain's reward system and releases dopamine, which is the chemical that makes you feel good. The problem is that it spikes, then it crashes, leaving you wanting more. It's basically the same loop that makes other addictive substances so hard to quit. Now here's where it gets darker. The fast food industry spent $8 billion on advertising in 2024 alone, and more than 80% of all food and beverage advertising in the US promotes fast food, sugary drinks, candy, and unhealthy snacks. And guess what? Kids are the main target. In 2024, children and teens were seeing an average of 2 fast food ads every single day just on TV. That doesn't even count social media, YouTube, billboards, or anywhere else. What's even crazier is that researchers found that 3-year-old kids were already recognizing fast food logos. McDonald's was identified correctly by 93% of preschool-aged children. They're being marketed to before they even know how to read. And this isn't random. The reason they target kids is that if you get someone hooked on a food brand early, you create a customer for life. These companies know this. They've spent billions studying it. So next time you find yourself reaching for something you know isn't good for you and wondering why you can't stop, remember, you're not weak. You're up against billion-dollar budgets and teams of scientists whose entire job is to make sure you can't say no. Okay, now let's talk about money, because this one might surprise you the most. So here's a question for you. Who actually benefits when people are broke? The obvious answer is nobody wants people to be broke, right? Well, let's take a look at who actually profits from it. Picture this. You miss a credit card payment by 1 day. Now there's a late fee, your interest rate goes up, next month you owe more money than you did before, even though you paid. So now you're not paying down debt anymore, you're actually feeding it. And every single dollar of that goes straight into a bank's pocket. That's not an accident, that's the business model. Payday loan companies charge interest rates of 300, 400, sometimes 600% annually. And they set up their stores specifically in low-income neighborhoods because that's where their customers are. The less money you have, the more desperate you are, and desperate people pay whatever they have to. But it goes even further than that. When people are financially dependent, they become politically dependent too. Think about it. If you're struggling to pay rent, if you're stressed about food, if you're terrified about bills, you need someone to help you. And the people offering that help, well, they get your loyalty, your vote, and your compliance. A broke population is an easier population to control. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's just how power works. And here's the science nobody talks about. A study published in the journal called Science found that poverty and financial stress are directly linked to depression and anxiety. When people lose income, their mental health gets worse. And when their mental health gets worse, their financial decision making gets worse too. So they make bad decisions, sink deeper, feel worse, make more bad decisions. It's a loop that feeds itself. Debt in particular is brutal. Research shows debt is even more strongly linked to depression and anxiety than income level itself. And the more debt you have, the worse it gets. There's a direct relationship. More debt, more mental health damage. And here's the part that completely blew my mind. Just worrying about debt debt predicts depression more than the actual amount you owe. The stress alone is enough to break you down. And then there's the generational piece. Research found that low-income kids are 5 times more likely to drop out of college even if they get in. Only 11% of low-income first-generation college students finish their degree in 6 years. That's compared to 55% of higher-income students. And without that degree, earning potential stays low, and then their kids start at the bottom too. The cycle doesn't just trap you, it follows your family. And here's how the fat trap and the broke trap connect. Healthy food is expensive, fast food is cheap. When you're choosing between a $1 menu item and a $15 salad, that's not even a real choice for most people. So the same companies keeping you broke are also the ones whose food you can actually afford. It all feeds the same loop. The system isn't broken, it's working exactly as designed. Now let's talk about the big elephant in the room. Depression rates have gone through the roof. The World Health Organization says there are now 300 million people globally dealing with depression. In the US alone, that number keeps growing every single year. So who's making money off of this? Well, it's the antidepressant market. The global antidepressant drug market is currently worth $23 billion, and it's projected to hit $36 billion by 2033. That's actually more money than most countries' entire economies. Now, I want to make things clear. I'm not saying that antidepressants are bad or that you shouldn't take them if you need them. If your doctor prescribes you medication and it's helping you, then by all means keep taking it. But here's the question I want you to sit with. Are we treating the cause or just the symptoms? Think about everything we just talked about. The food companies are engineering products that mess with your dopamine and reward system, which affects your mood and mental health. The financial system is trapping people in debt and poverty, which science directly links to depression and anxiety. And then when you're depressed, there's a $23 billion industry waiting to sell you a solution. You see how that works? They help create the conditions that make you sick, and then they sell you the pill. Pharmaceutical companies don't make money from healthy people. They make money from sick people. And here's the uncomfortable truth. A depressed, exhausted, overwhelmed person doesn't push back and doesn't demand change. They scroll, they order food, and they just barely survive, and every part of that survival is monetized. There's a reason the ultra-processed food being marketed to you is also directly linked to depression in research. The same food that's cheap, everywhere, and advertised to you constantly is also quietly making your mental health worse. The fat trap feeds the depression trap, the broke trap feeds the depression trap, it all connects. Fat, broke, depressed, each one feeds the other, and at every step someone is getting paid. Okay, so that's all the bad news, but here's the part you stayed for, the actual way out. And look, I'm not gonna lie to you, this isn't easy. You're fighting against billion-dollar industries and decades of conditioning, but it definitely is possible, and once you see the system clearly, you can start making choices that go against it. The first step is awareness. When you're craving something, just pause for 1 second and ask yourself, am I actually hungry or did I just see an ad? Am I stressed? Am I bored? Most of the time, the craving isn't even real hunger. It's a response to a trigger they designed. You don't have to eat perfectly, but start cooking more whole foods at home, even simple stuff, rice, eggs, vegetables, fruit, real food that your body actually recognizes. The more you replace ultra-processed stuff with real food, the less power those cravings have. Most people are taught get a job, spend the paycheck, and repeat. But that's not living, that's just a slower version of the broke trap. The way out is to start building things that make money even when you're not working. A skill you can freelance, or starting a YouTube channel, or even just putting 10% of every paycheck into an index fund before you spend anything else. The goal isn't to be rich, the goal is to stop being desperate, because desperation is exactly what the system feeds on. Even small steps towards financial breathing room can change how you feel, how you eat, and how you think. Depression, anxiety, stress, these aren't personal failures. A lot of time they're rational responses to a system that's genuinely stacked against you. But there are things that actually work that don't cost anything. For example, walking 30 minutes a day has been shown in multiple studies to reduce depression as effectively as medication in some people. Sunlight, actual sleep, real human connection, less time on social media, these aren't buzzwords. They directly affect your brain chemistry and they're completely free. But by far the most powerful thing you can do is exactly what you're doing right now, learning. Once you understand how the system works, you can't unsee it. You'll notice the ads differently, you'll read labels differently, and you'll think about money differently. The people at the top of these systems, the food companies, the financial industry, they count on most people being too tired, too stressed, and too distracted to pay attention. The moment you start paying attention, you take some of that power back. Look, I want to be real with you. I'm not saying the world is run by some evil villain rubbing his hands together in a dark room. It's way more subtle than that. It's just that a lot of powerful systems happen to make more money when you're unhealthy, financially dependent, and mentally struggling. That doesn't mean you're helpless. In fact, knowing this is genuinely one of the most freeing things you can understand, because now you know what you're up against. You're not lazy, you're not weak, you're not broken, you're just a person living inside a system that was never designed to help you thrive. But you can thrive anyway. Millions of people do, and it starts with exactly what you did today, asking questions. So if this video helped you in any way, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one. Love you guys.